everyone, I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on USBN Sports Podcast. And I'm joined with my co-host, as always, Steve Ellis. And Steve, it's kind of fitting that we have our next guest here. He happens to be associated with Jim Serger, who happens to be our sponsor. Let's get into this real quick. Obviously this is sponsored by Jim Serger's seventh book is up for sale now with 6 other Anderson Township buddies, and this happens to be one of them. Our guest here we'll get to in a minute. Jim tells a story of what happened to them all at the Van Halen Concert. Book is available anywhere books are sold or jimserger.com. And super excited. Jim has just been a huge supporter of our podcast, and he's always reaching out to give us new guests, new ideas, new things to do. And so I thought it was only fitting that we get Chris, who I've been friends with Chris for a while. Him and our wives are really, really super close. She was in our wedding, so it's nice to catch up. I mean, it's been too long. It took too long for Chris to get us, but it's exciting. And Jim and how he is with the book and everything, and then to have Chris associated with, it's going to be great to catch up and talk about this.
It sure is, but it's funny, the whole connections of the Anderson Township, and as my wife gives me shit about this small little bubble we live in, but I mean, it's great to see him catch up, even if it has to be a podcast to catch up. But I mean, Berger family, another legendary Anderson Township family, so I can't wait to get into this and hear about this book.
And I can't wait to tell him. I don't know if he remembers this story, and I'm going to have to tell him, and I hope his dad will remember the story, so I'll get a little bit later about when I was coaching football at Anderson. So, but as we said, joining us is Chris Berger. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. You guys do a great job, so it's an honor to be on your show.
Well, we appreciate it, man. And again, I know we say this all the time to guys we run into. We got to go catch up more often, try to get together. We have to do this. I mean, we got to get our wives back, getting back together again, because you and I had some fun nights watching some football games.
Oh, gosh, I remember on the back patio and everything.
The Penn State little mug that you used to get. He gave me this Penn State. It made me drink out of this mug he had, and it was like a Viking thing.
Remember that? I said that's going to be for good luck.
Good luck. And so we're watching a Penn State game, and he made me. And every time that I was drinking out, Penn State would do well. So I was like, that was like our.
How'd that work out for you?
I got pretty drunk.
Well, Danny, before we get into this, I mean, we got showcase.
So we're going to show what we got here going on. Jim or Chris brought all of his paraphernalia from that concert, which we're going to get into a little bit later on. So we're going to catch up. But Chris, let's first get into growing up in Anderson. We grew up on the same side of Anderson. Talk a little bit about another one that's on the Summit side.
Another Summit.
But talk.
What side were you on?
I was at Air.
He's on a bad side.
Okay. The bad side.
But talk about growing up, and I know that my memories growing up in Anderson were just phenomenal. So talk a little bit about growing up in Anderson, what that was like for you.
No, 100%. It was interesting with going out and doing some interviews with Jim and everything. At that time, back in the early 70s, that Summit was one of the largest subdivisions in the whole state of Ohio.
Yeah.
So, and you look at it now when you go into subdivisions, Summit's still there, but all these new developments, you only have 20, 30, maybe 40 houses in a subdivision. But back then, we could ride our bikes everywhere. And all the friends I made, I mean, I've known Jim since first grade. Hung out with him, and the days with going behind his house, because he was right on Muskegon. And his backyard
was huge.
The forest back there and everything before they built that development. But growing up, you had these group of friends that I'm still friends with to this day, and the experiences we went through. And I bring up that about I think we called that Muskegon Woods back there. Is that what we called it? But going back there for hours, getting together in the morning and riding our bikes and building dirt bike ramps back there,
and then also doing the forts back there, building forts back in the
I mean, it was just an incredible time. And then I remember the summers. Once again, all my friends, we belong to Summit Swim Club, so it's like every morning. I think it opened at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. We play tennis beforehand, and then we'd go in and swim all day. And then we'd go home, eat dinner,
go back
and
at
then
night.
Go back down. It was just, I mean, that I think about those days and how awesome it is. I know we tell our kids like, enjoy your youth,
absolutely,
you got stuff, but just incredible times.
Well, the one thing, Steve, you probably remember too. Back, Tony Diana lived on that the hill that would take you back on the bike, and there was a trail that took you down there. Tony Diana lived back there. Coleman's lived back there, and you would go down, and there was just that trail, and it put you right through the woods and take you right to Summit. So we would do the back road.
I never understood that because like backyards backed up to each other, but you had that path,
and everybody cut their fence off right there where that path was.
Right? Was that on purpose? Just so
I guess I don't know.
I guess so.
So who cut the grass there?
Well, we rode our bikes down there so much
that it just flattened out.
It was a path.
Yeah.
So it was always fun when it rained and stuff. But yeah, I remember going down that path and then hitting that little section of woods, and it put you right in to the parking lot with the tennis courts right there and stuff. And it was.
But it was like a major thoroughway. Like I mean, bikes going back and forth, coming and going, and I mean, it was just again, our childhood I think is a lot different than it is today.
Well, there's no question of that. That's what's so cool, and it's hard to explain like to our kids now about because it was so cool. I mean, obviously it sounds like you guys living in Summit. I lived over in Brittany Acres. Very similar, but about the amount of families that moved in.
Oh yeah,
all the same age. Parents are pretty much the same age, and having kids all at the same time, and it just exploded.
It did,
which was so cool. Which you don't find that now because a lot of people they stay in their house, almost too long, or the neighborhoods turn over. But then it was everybody was together. Growing up, which was so cool. All right, so when you were in Summit, and you had all these friends. All right, what were you into? What sports did you play? Who did you play with? You just cut me off.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I didn't cut you off. I just turned you down. Just knock it off, man.
He wants me to stop talking.
Knock it off, man. I'll tell you.
Was that the red button?
That was it. I'm out. What sports did you play?
Gosh, we played everything. Growing up, unorganized sports, we were always playing baseball, basketball, soccer. I mean, that's all we did all day long. But, once, we got to the age to get into organized sports, I was playing baseball, soccer. Those were my two sports growing up.
And all the neighborhood kids were on your team?
All the neighborhood kids were on
which is so cool. I mean, even more.
Right.
So who was your coaches for those teams?
Growing up, it was always, guys on the teams, their dads were always coaching. So my dad, as much he could with his work schedule as being a policeman, he was there as much as possible. But there was always Lou Schwartz was my soccer coach back in the day, and he was an incredible coach back then. Had a couple, like I said, it was a lot of the parents' dads that came and coached us. So a lot of great people that I look up to even to this day.
Yeah, Jimmy Serger's dad was another one that coached.
Mr. Zimmerman, my dad. So it was, I can't say it enough, but it was an incredible time growing up.
Give me some team names. Who were you sponsored by? Convenient, or who were you sponsored by?
Well, our soccer team,
the baseball team was.
Well, that was E-League. So when we first, that was the first T-ball.
Right,
so that was the E-League. So they had, back then it was either you were
red, yellow, green.
And then you had the big E on the top. So no sponsorships there, but my soccer team was the Sailor Shooters. So I never
understood
what that was, but baseball, it was Becker Electric.
Yes.
I did play for Friendlies as well.
Friendlies,
everybody seemed to play for Friendlies.
That was the best one because after every game,
you got ice cream.
You get to go up there and get ice cream, and maybe head over to the roller rink afterwards.
Right next door. That's right.
I know.
Oh, that's the best.
That's funny. All right, so as you got into high school, obviously we're going to talk about football. Danny's going to talk about football. Did you play anything else other than football at Anderson?
My first year, I played football, basketball, and baseball.
Okay.
My sophomore year, I played basketball and football.
Okay.
And by that time, it was like I started working and everything. I was like, I can't do everything.
Right.
And at that point, I know you talk about Coach Soriano on here quite a bit. When he came in, it was like, okay, I better dedicate myself 100% to football. Yeah. And he wasn't against, doing other sports. I mean, he loved the guys that wrestled and everything and played basketball, but, my skill set in definitely can't wrestle. Basketball, I was more of a thug out there, the enforcers.
You need those, though.
What's that?
You need those.
I know, exactly. But yeah, at that point, it was like, I better concentrate on this, 100% focus on, lifting weights and, all that goes into prepping for the season.
Right.
And that was the one thing that Coach Soriano always preached and everything. Said, you don't win games on Friday night in September or August. you win those games in January after your season's over with, when you're prepping for it. So,
agreed.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Coach Sirianno. I've mentioned before on all these podcasts is when I thought I knew football until I had a coach with Sirianno, and the dedication not only from him, but he put in his assistant coaches, the time that you had to put in. We were there on scouting on Fridays, we were there Saturdays, we were there Sunday mornings, super early, doing a scouting report, getting ready for the week. Talk a little bit about it. I mean, it totally changed the culture at Anderson.
100%. And my sophomore year, that was Coach Stowe's last year. So I was able to play a little bit of I was on kickoff team, so that was a great thing as a sophomore. But I guess I can't speak to, I know there's a lot of things about Coach Stowe, just how brave a coach he was. But, hearing, like Corey's podcast and you guys talking, that when Coach Vince came in, it was completely different story. Correct. And see, I was kind of used to that because when I played Pee Wee, I played for Mount Washington Pee Wee football, and our coach there, Pat Cohen, he was that type of coach, like Coach Sirianno. So I was kind of used to that. You know what, your coach is the end all be all. You do everything he says and everything. But when Coach Sirianno came in, it was it was like we were in those doldrums at Anderson. I can't remember the last time we had a winning season and everything. So for him to come in and instantly change that culture, I mean, there was a fear of him, but a massive amount of respect for him. And that was day one when he came in.
It was a great time, and really, honestly, he put Anderson on the map. Anderson is where they are now because of Coach Sirianno. 100%. And then Jeff keeping it going, Jeff Giesen keeping it going, Evan Dreyer keeping so all these guys keeping it going. There's no way Anderson would be what it is if it wasn't for him. I think, because back then it was soccer, right? It was 100%. Just a soccer sport.
Right, exactly. And you bring up a point there of, other things that Coach Sirianno did. I remember I brought up that point about sophomore year, and it was funny when I was listening to Corey talk about the Turpin game when Steve Green got hurt, Corey got hurt. So at fullback, that's what I was playing. And they both got hurt during that game. So
when was that? Was it your sophomore year?
Gosh, that was my sophomore year.
Okay.
Yes. So I remember that I had to go in the game. And at that point, freshmen had different sets of plays. JV had different sets, and varsity was. So I remember going into the game, and they were calling plays. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. They're just like, you just go there, block that guy and stuff. But that's one thing Coach Vince did.
All the way through.
Everybody had the same play. So if you were a freshman, you were running the same stuff as varsity, which was, a huge thing in circumstances like that. If you have to go to, the last string on the pitch and stuff to get in there. Now, it was only in a couple plays until Corey came back in. But still was one thing that always stuck in my head. That's
a great way to talk about how that whole thing was, because that was the big change that he made, was everybody ran the same exact plays. And so that was a huge thing. So this was one of the main reasons, just talk about growing up in Anderson. But obviously the one main thing that we kind of wanted to talk about too here is your experience with this book that came out, which is pretty awesome. It's Jump with Jimmy Serger, and it's honestly, it's a pretty cool. So let's talk about how, I know Jimmy's always figuring out ways to write a book or do something about that, but talk about when he approached you and the guys, and just kind of talk a little bit about how that all came together.
Right. It was about a little over a year ago. Jim reached out to me and said, hey, I've got an idea for a book. Let me throw it past you. But the thing with Jim, every single time, you can't tell anybody else about this. So he's still, even to this day and stuff, we can't tell anybody about this. So that was the first conversation. He goes, I was up at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame he was up there with his daughter, and they went to the Eddie Van Halen exhibit, and the Frankenstein, the guitar was up against the wall, and he tells a story all the time where he turned to his daughter and said, did I tell you about that night in 1984? And I guess his daughter's like, you've told it to me a million times. You need to write a book about it. So it was actually Jim's daughter that kind of pushed him that way. But when Jim called me, and I hadn't talked to Jim, probably for 4 years.
Really?
When he reached out to me, and immediately, I think we were on the phone maybe for an hour and a half. We talked a little bit about, Van Halen and our experiences, because that was such a huge point in our lives.
Right.
And the book is, it's based on Van Halen, and it's based on that night, but it's really about the friendships over all the years. We talked about it earlier. I've known Jim since first grade.
Right.
A lot of those guys I've known since first grade at IHM. So it's not only a book about Van Halen, about friends and longevity and relationships.
That's funny. That's kind of cool. Talk about this week in Anderson. We always talk about everybody knowing each other. This is growing up in Anderson. Yep. All these guys get together and have that experience. So that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you guys are doing this and bringing this out. I think it just makes it for an awesome story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after that night, which obviously you must have had fun. But I mean, without giving too much away, I mean, because here we are, 40 years later. I mean, just without giving away anything in the book. I mean, how much fun was that night? That the fact that every single time you guys probably get together, that's one of the things you guys bring up.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. The interesting thing, like you said, I don't want to give too much in the book and everything, but the way the whole thing transpired, we all saw the Jump video the very first time, and we probably all remember seeing
MTV.
that the first time on MTV. You got Martha Quinn. Here comes Jump by Van Halen, and that was my first introduction to Van Halen. I'm like going, all right, this is pretty cool. And then it all kind of just rolled on from there. And part of the book that you can read is I wasn't allowed going to the concert initially.
Okay.
So, but Jim and all my friends, they were able to get tickets and everything, got it coordinated with one of the dads to take, which is another great part of the book. But I wasn't allowed going.
Okay.
And it just so happened that my dad, and the reason why I wasn't allowed going, my dad worked details all the time. Okay. Yeah, my dad was a Cincinnati police officer. Yes. He made more money working these details, concerts and everything. He saw what went on back there. The Who, Led Zeppelin and stuff. He's like, no, you're not going to this concert. And I'm like going, oh gosh. So I was devastated.
So what age were you at this?
I was 12. I was in 7th grade.
That is crazy.
Yes,
12.
I was 12 years old.
You know what? I know I'd have to say, I don't know if my mom and dad would let me go to that, unless, like you said, you talked about a parent that was taking you and all that, but I don't know, man. I don't know if my mom and dad would have let me.
And you know what? The story is all my friends convinced their parents to let them go because my dad was going to be working the concert. Okay. And saying, Mr. Berger's going to be there. He'll watch over us. Don't worry about it. So they were allowed to go, but I still wasn't allowed going.
Oh, wow.
So I did not know I was going to that concert until Friday. So Van Halen came March 8th and March 9th, Thursday and Friday night. Okay. So Thursday night concert, my dad was working and everything. Once again, I don't want to give too much of the book, but there is some circumstances that happened backstage at the concert that my dad actually called my mom and said, Chris can come to the concert on Friday night. I didn't have a ticket or anything, but
figure it out.
But that's a great part of the book because my dad snuck me in the side of Cincinnati Gardens. I'll never forget that. And it was just, but at that point, it is just like crazy.
All right, so you mentioned your dad, and he's a part of this book and part of that night.
Yes.
You just mentioned he snuck you in. So what, did your mom take you down there?
No, actually, that's another part of the book about the van and how, Mr. Myers took us all down there. Okay. And the reason why he got involved, actually, he said he was going to take those guys down. Okay. If you buy me a ticket, I'll go with you. So Mr. Myers had the white van and piled us all in there.
It's like a Mr. Myers there.
It was just crazy. And, I wish that, one of those things where I could have, a video recording.
I was just getting ready to say that. How cool would that have been?
Oh my gosh, the conversations we had on the ride down there. I mean, come on. We're, East Side, Anderson Township.
Oh my God, that's
and we're
crazy.
going down through. It's like, Cincinnati Gardens, where the heck is the Gardens?
Yeah. Yeah. Was that your first concert, I guess? 12 years old, I would imagine.
That was all of our first concert.
You know what? I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. You know, I think my first concert was. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. Whitney Houston, I think, was my first concert.
Oh, that is not surprising, by the way. Not
surprising. Whitney Houston. I mean, come on.
She was incredible.
I know, but still.
So did you go, Steve, do you remember your first concert?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm with my brother up to Kings Island at Timberwolf.
Oh, I remember
It was the Moody Blues.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And it was the first time I'd ever not tried to realize what that smell was.
That's so funny because I was getting ready to I'm going to ask you something about that. So, but yeah, no, that's so. You obviously said it was at Cincinnati Gardens. Not a lot of times back then. It was. I think the Gardens were the big deal to have the concert with. So that's kind of a different venue. But I was just getting ready to say one of the questions I had about. I bet you at 12 years old, you're like, what's that smell?
That's not popcorn.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that whole concert, the first of many things. You know, people lighting up, seeing girls firsthand that were older than I was. The big Aquanet hair and everything.
Yes,
and just everything about that night. And we do touch some of those experiences in the book and everything. But it was incredible. It was just the perfect storm. For the first concert. For all of us, and then the whole story about how I got in and how that happened, and then all my buddies, we got signed tour books and everything from the band, so that was another great thing.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask. We haven't mentioned. Give me all the guys that went to this concert with you.
So it was Todd Zimmerman, of course, Jimmy Serger, Mike Myers, and myself. Okay. So it was the four of us. I know Mike's brother was at the concert, but he wasn't sitting with us. But those guys got so lucky, though. I mean, we were when I was talking with Jim, we were trying to remember. He was trying to remember where he actually got the tickets from. So I don't know if you guys remember Shillito's when that opened up, the Ticketmaster was on the side.
I do remember that.
Good call.
And they would open the door on the side there, and people would sprint all the way up there.
I do remember that.
So that's what those guys did, and so they got the tickets, 10th row, $12.50. $12.50.
Oh my God!
And he's got some of the stuff right here that you can see that the ticket and pictures with his dad, and just it's just really an incredible thing that you guys got to experience. And I love that Jim was able to get all you guys together to do this on the book. And more importantly, I've seen your dad out there making the tours and making the rounds, and it's great to see your dad out there.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it was fun reminiscing about this and kind of pulling us all together. And what Jim did was he interviewed each one of us individually.
Okay.
So he had his time with my dad, and Jim would call me after he left his house and stuff. And once again, don't tell your dad I'm talking to you, but just the stories and rehashing, because my dad had a integral part of this book. Because if it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't have been there.
That's right.
And then who knows if any of this, I know there wouldn't have been any autographs or anything.
Right.
And maybe this book doesn't even exist, or that concert didn't hold the memories or the power that it has nowadays.
So have you already gone out and done some signings and stuff?
We haven't done any signings yet. The first signing is this Thursday in Madeira. So we're going to be doing a book signing there, and then Friday night we're going to be at Anderson Pub and Grill. We're going to do a podcast on Friday night coming up.
Awesome.
And that one's, in case you're out there listening, we're friends with these guys. One More and I'm Out Here podcast that they do. That venue got switched. It was supposed to be at Varsity. It's got switched now to Anderson Pub and Grill, and it's a great setup there because we do our football games or our reviews from there. It's a great setup. It'll be a big enough area for everybody to attend. Steve and I are going to try to get there if we can, and it's just an awesome event that they're doing. So it's and then I know you've got several others I think that you got going on too.
Actually, next weekend that is next weekend launch. I think it was January 18th when the 1984 tour officially started in Jacksonville. So Jim kind of got us lined up with these events right around the launch when the first concert was. But yeah, we got a couple other book signings.
Just one right here, don't you? The book rack. The book rack. I think
that is
right by Cervantes.
Next Sunday we're doing that one a week from today. Next Saturday we're going to be at Everybody's Records, and I love buying old vinyl. So I haven't been there for a while, but we're going to be there next Saturday. They're going to play Van Halen music for 2 hours.
I bet there's going to be some groupies there that probably tell some stories.
Oh gosh, I'm sure there is. We've had a lot of people, and I know Jim tells me a story reaching out to him, talking about their experiences.
Oh, really?
And we were on the day after Christmas. We were on 700.
I saw that
with Dan
Very
Carroll.
Cool. Very cool.
It was great. We didn't even realize people were going to call in. So people started calling in saying, "Oh, I was at that concert. I got this tour T-shirt." And it's kind of like rehashing that with all the people that got to experience it, and it was just incredible for 2 nights. And compared to L.A., New York, and everything, that Cincinnati got 2 nights of it. And it was just incredible.
So can I ask you a question? Are you going to wear the David Lee Roth pants or anything like that at these book signings?
Don't you have those, David?
I still do.
Gosh, I need to lose about 40 pounds to be able to fit into that, and plus I don't want to scare away people that want to come buy the book and stuff.
You do the splits in the air?
Oh, jeez, if I did the splits or even tried to jump, I'd rip my back out.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's talk about your family. Are you still in Anderson? And tell us about your...
We are right on the outskirts of Anderson, right off Mount Carmel.
Okay.
So, but I was born, we moved into Summit. I was having this conversation with my dad, rehashing it and stuff, that we moved into our house on Den Allen in May of 72. I was 8 months old at the time when I first moved into Summit, and we were there all the way up to, I believe it was 91 when we moved the Eagles Knoll right off of Old 5 Mile.
Where did your dad? Where were your parents living at previously before they came to Anderson?
They were over in Silverton. They had I think they had 1-bedroom apartment and stuff. My dad was a police officer and scrounged all their pennies together to buy this house and everything. And I still drive by that house now.
Yeah, so do I.
But literally I live right off of Mount Carmel, so I'm in Claremont County, but Union Township, but
close enough.
Still, it's close enough. Stone's throw away, right? So I still consider it Anderson Town.
So you married to Molly, who went to Anderson as well, and good friends with my wife. And then your daughter.
Yes, daughter Sophie just turned 21. Graduated with her degree from Cincinnati. So she's all good and happy with that. I'm glad that that financial part of everything's over with and everything. But doing well.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, great family out there. Just and just excited. But I have to bring up. I told Steve off air before he got here. I said, I have to bring this story and see if you remember this or not. So we talked about the Summit Estates Day or Summit Swim Club. Mm-hmm. Do you remember playing tennis?
Oh.
But do you remember playing, and there was a thing that we played, and you and I played in this. It was me, you, Fred Crace, I think it was your brother. It was a thing that we did. So like you and I would be on the same team against Fred and somebody, and then you'd switch, and then you'd add the points to how many you got. So like if we won a set, 6, whatever, and we played. And do you remember doing that at the home?
I don't remember.
Please deny this.
We did that.
Please deny it.
And you know what I remember? I remember you as a John McEnroe playing back then. You were getting so mad. You got so mad, and you'd be like, getting so. And that's what I remember. That's what I not throwing tennis rackets, but just getting so ticked, and that's what I. Do you not remember that?
I don't. I mean, I remember playing tennis.
But we played in this. It was like a league, and it was in the morning, and we played in the morning, and it was like we started at maybe 9 a.m. or 10 and whatever, and we played and then we had, like
on the board.
There was a board.
Okay. I remember that now. Okay.
Yeah. So I can't remember. I thought Fred played in it. You, your brother, me. I'm trying to think if Moose played in it. I can't remember if he did or not.
Yeah, I'm sure Jimmy was playing.
Yeah.
In
so
it
there was all. Yeah. I didn't know if you remember that or not. That was one thing I remember. Yeah.
Jeez, that's just so much fun.
Do you remember how good or bad he was?
I was bad. You know what my second serve was?
Do you have your glasses?
My second serve was like a little. The first one I could do okay, but the second
tongue out.
Oh yeah.
That's when they always had the lineups up on the board. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I stuck with Dan the first round? I was like, I'm not going to get any points. We did this.
We're just going to forfeit. Just go ahead and move me to the next one. So one of the things that we always talk about is your memories. So let's give a favorite memory from high school, and then we didn't really get into what you did after high school. So talk a bit about your favorite college memory, and then maybe a favorite teacher or something like that. So let's start with high school. What's your favorite high school memory?
Gosh, there's so many memories in high school. Absolutely, best time of my life and everything. And probably, I met Molly in 7th grade at a Ghostbusters concert, and she was harassing me. She was in the row behind me, and she was kicking my seat the whole entire movie and everything. So that's we had one of those going out back then where if you talked on the phone once a month or something. But probably high school. The end of high school was the best because her and I went to prom together, and just that whole experience with we keep talking about all of our friends and all of our buddies. Just that end of my senior year was incredible, and very fortunate that prom was our first date, Molly and I's first
no
date.
kidding.
And we just went on from there.
Now look, wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome, man.
And then also Coach Soriano. I mean, just what an incredible influence in my life. And in your teenage years, you always look up to people and how you develop as a person. And there was a blessing for all of us that had the chance to be players underneath him. But he's a huge influence in my life to this day.
I think a lot of guys have said that.
Say the same thing.
That's pretty incredible. So what about college? I know, didn't you play? Where'd you go to college again?
I went to Wittenberg.
That's what I thought.
For about a year and a half. That was great. I always had the dream of playing college football and everything. And Wittenberg was a Division III school, and they were pretty good. A good school and everything. But and it was great because John Paxson and I were roommates the first year and everything, and just had a great time. I mean, we had Krista and Molly and all that group of friends. It was like everybody from Anderson was always coming up on weekends. And that first year up there was incredible. I played a little bit of football, had a little bit too much fun and everything, but once again, you get those stepping stones in life that make you the person you are, and that was for college memories, that was a great time too.
That's awesome. And then I don't know if Soriano's your favorite teacher. Teacher, you got a teacher out there?
Teacher, gosh. The teacher that probably had the biggest impact on stuff that I've learned and everything was Phil Sinkovich.
Really?
Yes, because he did the economy classes and everything, where he taught us how to write checks and everything like that, and balance check. And I'll never forget that class. It was like when I've known him forever. Actually, my first job was working for him I was in the concession stand. At Indian Hill.
Yes, and he pulled everybody there.
Oh gosh, that was great. Yeah, I was stuck back there at 14 years old. I think he paid me $1.25 an hour or something.
And you worked with my mom?
I worked with your mom.
Yeah,
and
mom ran into
that was I'll never forget that, because I was 14 years old, and Phil said, "Okay, you're going to go work concession stand and stuff." I'm like, "All right, cool, this and that." And I remember everybody around said, "Be careful of Alice. She is a mean woman." I'm like, "All right." So I walked in and stuff. I'm young, not with stereotypes or anything. I went in there, and her and I kicked it off immediately. Just the nicest in the world, and, because she told me what to do. do? She's always like, clean the grill. Got to do this and that. And that was a great time for my first job.
That's awesome.
Mom was
she was the best.
Incredible.
She was absolutely the best. But man, this is really cool that you guys get to do this. I'm really glad that you got to get with us. I know we've been trying to get this together for a while and trying to get the times and everything. And I know Jimmy was kind of wanting to timeline it all. You know how he is.
Everything's timing with Jimmy.
Timeline it all. So and then, like I said, Steve and I are going to try to make it up there for a couple of your events just to support you guys, because I know Jimmy's just been a huge supporter of us. We want to support you guys too as well. And anybody out there, go out and get this book. I need to get it myself, so I want to read it. And I sure probably, a good host would have read it already, but since I'm not the greatest host in the world, we didn't read it. And
well, we're going to tie you into reading it, and then we'll come back in a quiz month or so, and then we can sit down and talk about
to see if I actually read it.
Once you read it and everything, the whole ties to Anderson Township and everything that people from here that read are, oh my gosh, I remember that, or remember this and that. And even people that aren't from here, the story of friendship and the concert and everything. Yeah. It's cool. So I'm going to hold you guys to it. You got to read the book.
Well, and I'm going to tell you something else too, since I've got you here. We kind of talked about it early. We say it all the time. He and I say this with other people too. We've got to keep in touch more. We've got to do a little bit more. Yep. I know time, everybody's kind of got things going, but we like we said, we used to do it a lot earlier. We're not doing it as much. We really need to try to get together. And I would even love just get your guys together and some of us, and we'll just sit and talk about it at the bar. I don't really care, just to get everybody together. So, but we really appreciate taking the time to do it, and it's great seeing you.
Great seeing you too. Great seeing you, Steve.
You too, buddy.
Appreciate this opportunity, and it's been a blast.
It really has. So we really appreciate it. Again, this is sponsored by, obviously, Jump Here. As you see all the paraphernalia here from Jim. The Jim book's 7th book is now for sale with 6 other township buddies, and one of them right here. Jim tells a story of what happened to them at a Van Halen concert. Book is available anywhere books are sold, or jimserger.com. And I'm just super excited that Jim is doing this, and I'm super excited for you guys to get the pub. And it was really cool seeing your dad. It was just cool seeing your dad out there, getting the pub that he deserves, and seeing him out there. So, and real quick, I got to bring this up. I don't know if your dad see if your dad remembers this or not.
Okay.
So when I was coaching football at Anderson, I was coaching, we played Withrow. And at the time, the head coach for Withrow is Dale Mueller, who was the head varsity coach at Withrow. And Withrow was really good. I think they went undefeated that year, right? Okay. And after the game, so I'm coaching off, and we're getting smoked. We got smoked, right? Your dad is working detail at Withrow.
Okay.
And we're getting smoked, and they're up 42-13. Their seconds are kicking down. They're kind of kneeling. Well, at the last second, he fakes a kneel and throws a long bomb for a touchdown. I was freaking livid.
Yeah.
I went in and grabbed everybody and said, get to the bus. We're not even, and obviously Vince didn't like that I didn't shake hands, but we pulled everybody, and your dad was there to calm me down. I just remember your dad.
Really?
He came over, and he's just like, because I went over to Mueller, and I was getting ready to start something with Mueller. Like I was going to, because he wasn't coaching the freshmen, but he was there. Okay. And he came over, and I started to go over, and your dad kind of like, no, don't go over there.
Probably saved you.
He did. So your dad, see if he remembers that story or not. I don't know if he does, but I just remember being really ticked off at Mueller, and you remember my hot head I had back then. So
yes, I did.
Your dad might have saved you from going to jail.
Throw you back.
Don't make me arrest you.
Danny, go back.
Yeah.
No, but that's awesome. Well, again, thanks, Chris. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you, guys.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. So for Dan Albers, Steve Ellis, and Chris Berger, you've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you guys next week.